Tonight we have a short opening monologue. Now, Democrats, they continue to make the claim that the Russian government is directly tied to the 2016 election hacking. And with weeks to go before he leaves office, well, President Obama announced sanctions against Russia, and also the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security. They released a coinciding report supposedly containing evidence that the Russian government coordinated all these cyber attacks. But that report gives very few details and a massive, big disclaimer. Now, Democrats are also pointing a finger at the group WikiLeaks, claiming that Russian hackers provided them with thousands of emails from the DNC and from Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman, John Podesta. Now, these emails contained explosive details exposing corruption, media collusion with the Clinton campaign, and downright dirty politics all the way around. So in light of all these new developments, well, I decided to go straight to the source over this ongoing controversy. So yesterday, I traveled to London to sit down with WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange in an attempt to set the record straight. Now, he rarely does these exclusive long-form interviews, given the nature of his current situation. Now, for 4.5 years, he has been confined at the Ecuadorian embassy, where he's not seen the light of day in all that time. So Assange, of course, he founded the group WikiLeaks. That was back in 2006. And in the years following, he made international headlines after releasing hundreds of thousands of classified U.S. government documents. And in 2010, he was detained in England after Swedish officials issued an arrest warrant over allegations that he may have sexually assaulted 2 women. That is a charge which he will respond to later in this program tonight in this interview. Now, in 2012, he was granted asylum in the Ecuadorian embassy in the city of London. Now, he has been living there ever since in very, very confined, tiny quarters. So in this wide-ranging interview, which we will show for the entire hour tonight, Assange told me what drives him to expose government and media corruption. Take a look. Let me start with the American elections. And from your perspective, how big a role do you feel WikiLeaks had in the outcome of the election? You didn't think Donald Trump was going to win.
I didn't think Donald Trump would win. I thought the establishment, for want of a better word, would see Hillary Clinton losing, and then would pile in more money and more energy, and various TV networks are on her side, and make sure that she won. I think that analysis was still correct, but it missed something fundamental, which is that the amount of investment to the Hillary Clinton campaign was in proportion to the degree that the establishment thought that she would lose. And she was aggressively projecting that she would be the inevitable winner, and was above, 5-10 points in the opinion polling. So she only got $1.5 billion directed into her campaign. If they thought she was going to lose, maybe she would have gotten $5 billion. We'd see a different result.
It's very interesting post-election, and it didn't even really happen immediately, but the narrative has begun that, in fact, the U.S. government is accusing WikiLeaks of having received materials from Russia and Russia's cyber criminals with the political agenda of influencing the election. And obviously they're talking not just about the John Podesta emails, the DNC emails, but in other ways. I've asked you before, I'll ask you again today. Did Russia give you this information, or anybody associated with Russia?
Our source is not a state party. So the answer for our interactions is no. But if we look at the most recent statement by the US government, which is on the 29th of December, okay, we had 5 different branches of government, Treasury, DHS, FBI, White House, presenting their accusations to underpin Obama's throwing out 35 Russian diplomats. What was missing from all of those statements? The word WikiLeaks. It's very strange. Now, my interpretation is that there's either, not surprisingly, a problem they feel with the evidence as far as WikiLeaks is concerned. Well, James Clapper said, we don't know how WikiLeaks got this information, we don't know when WikiLeaks got this information. But let's imagine that they are saying, okay, the problem here is that WikiLeaks published information. What are they saying? WikiLeaks published true information that the American public read. That information was the words of Hillary Clinton and her campaign manager, John Podesta, and other people in her campaign. And the American public read that information, true information, and said, we don't like these people, and then voted accordingly. But that's not sustainable. So what they want to do instead is conflate our publication of true information with, say, hacking, or rather alleged hacking, of US vote counting machines. And even Obama has had to admit that there has been no hacking of US vote counting machines.
No evidence of that. So, but the main focus for most Americans, they are being told by Hillary Clinton's campaign, by the President of the United States, there are the Department of Homeland Security, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, etc., that in fact WikiLeaks was working with the Russian government to influence the election. Is that true in any way, shape, matter, or form?
No, that's absolutely false. And if you read their statements carefully, you'll see they don't actually say that. They kind of mention one fact here and one fact there and nothing else. In the most up-to-date information, on the 29th of December, where the FBI, DHS, White House, etc. made a statement, what is completely absent from all those statements is WikiLeaks. Totally absent. So what's going on? Well, I believe two things are going on. Number one, they don't have the evidence that WikiLeaks is involved in that way. Now, why am I confident about that? Well, because there is one person in the world, and I think it's actually only one, who knows exactly what is going on with our publications, and that's me.
Can you say to the American people, unequivocally, that you did not get this information about the DNC, John Podesta's emails? Can you tell the American people 1,000% you did not get it from Russia or
Yes.
anybody associated with Russia?
We can say, we have said repeatedly over the last 2 months that our source is not the Russian government and it is not a state party.
There was one report in the Daily Mail that suggested somebody that you are friendly with actually was handed the documents at American University in a wooded area by a disgruntled Democrat who felt betrayed because the revelation showed that Bernie Sanders had been betrayed, and they didn't like the corruption of the Clinton Foundation. Can you confirm or deny that? Is that story true?
Well, that statement came from Craig Murray. He
friend of yours?
Friend of mine. He's been here several times. But WikiLeaks is a source protection organization. We are famous for never having exposed one of our sources over 10 years. That's why sources trust us and they come to us. So I can't comment on other people's statements about our sources, except to say what we have said, which is that our sources are not a state party.
Can I ask you this? Have you ever talked to Vladimir Putin?
No.
Have you ever talked to any of his surrogates?
No.
Have you ever talked to Donald Trump?
No.
Any of his surrogates?
No.
Not one?
No.
There was some report that you might have talked to somebody who was not associated with the campaign, Roger Stone.
No, that's false. I think where this Roger Stone claim is coming from is there's a radio guy on WBAI, which is a mutual friend, who wanted to come and see me to see if I would set up a radio show on WBAI, but he didn't. He did come to London, but he didn't meet with me.
So if the U.S. government is accusing WikiLeaks of having received these materials from Russia, and you say it's false, it did not come from Russia, and the President of the United States is advancing the narrative, is the President of the United States lying to the American people?
Well, he's acting like a lawyer. If you look at most of his statements, he doesn't say that. He doesn't say WikiLeaks obtained its information from Russia, worked with Russia,
He's saying Russia's trying to influence the U.S. elections.
Yes. So and you also note that he doesn't say, from statements that I've read, he doesn't say that Russia was trying to influence the election for Donald Trump. Obama doesn't say that. So you have to be very careful about the lawyerly language that is used to try and conflate different things together. The question is WikiLeaks publications. Okay, true information that the American people took up and they acted accordingly. Was it influential? Did it have a lot of influence? Statistically, yes, it was the #1 topic on Facebook throughout October. It's the #1 topic on Twitter, political topic, also throughout October. Did it change the outcome? Who knows? It's absolutely impossible to tell. If it did, the accusation is that the true statements of Hillary Clinton and her campaign manager, John Podesta, and the DNC head, Debbie Wasserman-Schultz, their true statements is what changed the election.
How do you view yourself? Are you a journalist? Do you view this as reporting that, for example, it's interesting because at one point in the campaign, the New York Times got a hold of Donald Trump's taxes, which, by the way, they obtained illegally, and they published the information. Is there any difference between, you are not going to reveal your source, but nobody has said what you released is not true. They went forward with the story on his taxes. Is there any difference?
There is a difference, which is our material is better presented, less intermediation. The public responded to it more than the New York Times. But the editor of the New York Times, he has come out and said that he would do the same thing as WikiLeaks. If they had obtained that information, they would publish it. Now, unfortunately, I don't believe that is true. I believe they would selectively maybe publish just a bit here and a bit there. They would not have done what we did, which is present the American public everything that we knew. Can you just imagine that if WikiLeaks had information about Debbie Wasserman-Schultz helping to rig the primary with Bernie Sanders, and we withheld that information until after the election? That would be an absolutely unconscionable act for a media organization to engage in. Unfortunately, those sorts of acts do happen, but not with this organization.
You know, in 2015, the Chinese stole millions of personal documents, classified, information on individuals who were seeing it and working for our government, et cetera. So if they don't say anything about China and they selectively choose this, is it to delegitimize Donald Trump? What's your interpretation of that?
It's exactly what it's designed to do. If you look at what the allegations are, they don't mention WikiLeaks for the 29th. They don't mention our publications. Our publications had wide uptake by the American people. They're all true. But that's not the allegation that is being presented by the Obama White House. So why such a dramatic response? Well, the reason is obvious. They're trying to delegitimize Trump administration as it goes into the White House. They are trying to say that President-elect Trump is not a legitimate
legitimately elected president.
Not legitimately elected.
If your information...
You watch. They will seize on this and harp on it for the next 4 years. I think that's a mistake. I think that's a mistake not just in fact, that's a mistake for the US Democratic Party. I think it's a stupid maneuver. It's the same reason why they lost the election, which is instead of focusing on substance, they focus on other things which they think are short-term wins, but are not strategic. A little comment by Trump here and there, for example, or this attempt to say that how outrageous it is that the American public received true information before an election. That the public doesn't buy that. They want as much true information as possible.
If the information you had was about Donald Trump and his campaign, would you have equally released that?
Yes, absolutely. It would be, once again, just think about it from our perspective. We've won a lot of media awards. we have the trust of our sources, we have the trust of our readers, having never got it wrong.
Well, this is an important point. 10 years, not one evidence where you've been proven wrong.
Well, not even one sustained allegation, even. We have a perfect record in relation to authenticating the material that we publish. That's a very valuable reputation to have, and we try and preserve it. So what else do we have a record for? There's no sources coming out through other journalists, say for example, they can still keep their anonymity. There's no sources coming out and saying, we gave WikiLeaks all this information about Donald Trump or President Xi or Vladimir Putin, and you know what? They didn't publish it.
I know you.
No one has come out and said that. If they did, that would hurt our reputation for trust for our sources.
I know you want to protect your sources, and when you first told me on my radio show that it was not Russia, you said so reluctantly. Can I ask, take it one step further? Can you say that the source was within the United States?
I don't want to constrain whether it was someone inside the United States, in the DNC, in the service providers that provide the DNC, or outside, etc. I think we have already pushed it quite a lot.
More than you would like.
More than we would like, by saying it's not a state party. That was necessary to do because there was a serious attempt to distract from the content of our publications with this Russian narrative. Now, our sources are interested in two things. They're interested in protecting their identity, but also not going through all that effort and risk to themselves only to have the publication undermined.
Then what do you make of the President of the United States, and Donald Trump may, in the next 24 to 48 hours, contradict with whatever information he's teasing that he does have, but he made a decision to expel 35 Russian diplomats in 2 sites, impose 12 sanctions against the Russian government, and you know, the Russian President Putin responded by inviting children to a Christmas party and said he will wait to deal with the new president. Why would the president, you're saying that Russia did not give you this information. He is very closely suggesting that, in fact, they did, and he's wrong. So my question is, does he know he's wrong? And from your perspective, he has to know.
He's playing games.
He's playing games.
He's playing games.
He's dishonest. Fair? Is he lying to the American people?
He's acting like a lawyer instead of being honest. So he's playing games by trying to suggest that Russia, quote, hacked the election, unquote, pretending that what's going on here is Russia hacking voting machines, for which there is no evidence, then suggesting without saying that our information was part of a plot to get Donald Trump elected. Once again, from our side, which we understand there's no evidence, but even James Clapper and so on coming out and saying, we don't know how WikiLeaks, we don't know when or how WikiLeaks got this information. So it's a construction to try and erect the topic that Donald Trump is illegitimately elected.